Hello and welcome to Roll on the Adventure, the show where we design, play, and then dissect tabletop role-playing games. Cue the intro.
Roll on, roll on the adventure, roll on the adventure,
on the adventure.
Right,
Okay.
Amy, was that better or worse than the recorder?
A lot better than the recorder.
Really?
Yes, the recorder was absolutely terrible.
You desperately want to bring the recorder back, don't you?
I've got the flute.
You are not doing that.
Oh.
What about the clarinet?
I veto this.
No, I do not have a clarinet. I'm also incapable of playing one. I don't do well with double reeds.
Oh my gosh. What are we doing today?
I think we're selecting the next Prime Minister.
Oof.
Topical.
I don't want to.
Can we do
Okay.
a Prime Minister RPG? Let's not. Let's absolutely not do that.
Please not. We don't have to age this recording more than it already is.
No, I just want to settle rumors now. Patch can't do it. It will keep him up past his bedtime.
Good plan.
Anyway.
So yes, we are creating our next game.
Ooh.
And we have a few prompts from the last one.
Mm-hmm.
We do
The
indeed.
first of all was that I would not like to do another map-centered game
Mm-hmm.
That is fine.
because they're quite tricky to sort of put out, hence the lack of the last one.
Ah.
And also that I've done like 4 of them so far this year. In like,
And you want to
other
try something
projects.
fresh, I feel that. Also, I'm more of a fan of Theatre of the Mind anyway, so I'm good.
How many did I miss? Because I know I wanted to skip out one. How many did I?
I think you skipped 2.
Yes.
Don't know. Yeah, Splendor of the Stars was the one I helped with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that was one of the prompts from last time. I believe we also had a prompt for actually having player characters, because the last one we didn't.
At least 1 player character each. I
Yes,
believe
it was also suggested that we might have 3 player characters each, but that was more of a suggestion.
Okay.
like multiple player characters might be a thing.
There's
Yep.
something about the disposability of that that's interesting.
Cool.
Sort of like Heavy Rain, where it doesn't matter if one of them falls because you've got the others to keep going with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
don't think
believe
we'll quite want to go for
Heavy Rain.
six pack of clones mechanic.
Oh,
Oh,
like
my gosh.
paranoia kind of thing. It also
Yeah.
made me think of Fire Emblem a little bit, where you have more people than you need, knowing that they'll die.
Aw. I
Yeah.
believe there was also a setting suggestion for having this be in the Wild West this time,
Ooh.
Yeah.
because I am quite a big fan of Wild West.
Okay.
I
Heck
mean,
yeah.
Whether we actually go for the Wild West itself or something Western inspired, I mean, there's that whole frontier isolation, sort of
Mhm.
fraying of civilization sort of thing that's you can kind of transplant to a lot of places.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I
I
believe there was a suggestion, though I'm not sure if this is just something I came up with later, of having different time periods, as in player characters in different time periods. But I think that might have been just something weird.
I kind of
Some-
like that because I kind of feel like you could set things up maybe, so
Mhm.
you could do something with one time period that might give you an advantage in another, or maybe as a challenge. You could have us,
Maybe.
maybe as a challenge, you could have us do the future bit first, and then in the subsequent thing, we have to make that future happen. If that makes
Ah.
any sense.
You set the rules of the thing, and then you have to actually meet those goals or cause a time paradox.
Yeah,
also,
that's
that
it.
works out quite well with the multiple player characters, right? Where if,
Yeah.
rather than them all being one unit, they're different time period people.
Like,
I
you
mean-
know how in Assassin's Creed your health bar is technically how synchronized you are? That could be a health bar of the mission in, okay, this is what happens in the future. How in sync can you get to the start of that scenario?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose the question is then: is it the characters or the players that are traveling through time?
Oh,
I
in this
mean-
scenario, it's there's no time travel as such. It's just you're in the past, and then you. So yeah, the players would be jumping through time, I guess. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be depending on how you want to interpret different characters. It could be a Cloud Atlas situation, or it could be like a Day of the Tentacle kind of situation where they're separate characters in separate areas, kind of moving items back and forth between the different time periods. There's a bunch of different ways we can tackle that. Sure. I'm the only person who remembers Day of the Tentacle.
I remember Day of the Tentacle.
I assume that's a movie?
Oh no, it's a point-and-click adventure game.
Yeah, it's one of the old ones from LucasArts,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was, I guess to explain for the people who don't know about the game. So it's a intentionally kind of silly, cartoony point-and-click game, and you play as 3 different characters who I think use a portaloo to travel between different time periods. So they're all solving puzzles that sometimes you'll hit a wall and there are no items in your time period that will solve it for you. So you need to hop to somebody else, get some items there, flush it through the portaloo to pick it up the other side and actually solve the puzzle. Yeah, it had a lot of moon logic stuff, but the hopping between characters and inventory stuff was really interesting. So having that reflected in the tabletop RPG might be neat. Who knows?
Well, I looked it up. I was only 2 when this game came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, everyone was probably quite young when it came out.
I don't think I was, but anyway.
So Chris wanted there to be numerical stats in the game, though we didn't know whether we wanted them to be fixed or more fluid. But he essentially wanted to have character stats because last time we didn't necessarily have any of them.
And they just took the form of buildings.
Yeah, they were a bit weird. Which, to be fair, all of our stat blocks are weird. And the final one was Chris wanted there to be an option where violence isn't necessarily the answer. So running into danger head first isn't necessarily the first or best option for any player.
I don't know. I think it was stronger than that. I thought it was more like violence is not the intended solution to pretty much anything.
But that's the thing. The important word there is intended.
Yeah.
Like, violence will happen. It's just not the first solution.
We can very heavily discourage it, though.
There's something, I think, that fits a Wild West kind of setting or narrative, right? With everybody being armed to the teeth, but actually it's a different type of communication that gets you through the other side. That fits quite well in that genre set, so.
I'm just imagining Cersei Lannister in... game. I can't remember which season it was. It might have been 5 or 6. Like, if you do not stand aside, there will be violence. I choose violence.
Yeah. Also, I would be very upset to play a Wild West game and not have a 6-shooter. That's very important.
But what happens if the 6-shooters don't shoot bullets?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
They shoot lasers.
I'm already excited to get super meta about it.
What happens if if you're like sort of dream cowboys, like sneaking in and shooting people with weird dreams?
Oh my god!
Gosh. This is getting weird already.
It's like half Psychonauts, half Wild West.
I had when you mentioned the conceit of this particular top line to me, Purple, I had a thought about it, which I kind of just want to throw out into the air now before I forget, because I have a terrible memory. So the idea that you have a revolver, 6-chambered gun, because you're a Wild Westman or a Wild West woman or a Wild West NB, it's all good. And you load them because one of the ideas you have here is like tags/descriptors.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you get to load your bullet with a thing, and it's not it's not necessarily a literal bullet that you load your gun with. And then when you problem resolve, you roll a d6, and that's the bullet that fires out your gun.
You know what that reminds me
with
of?
A big gun chamber on it.
You know what that reminds me of? I don't know if you guys ever played the series, but there's a series called Danganronpa.
Danganronpa is one of my favorite games ever. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, good.
The best way to describe it is basically Phoenix Wright with guns. And a lot of the time you have these things called truth bullets, which you can load into a gun, and they're essentially statements, which you can fire into other statements to say, like, this is a contradiction. And this kind of feels very similar to me. Like, you can load the gun with certain maybe phrases, actions, and words, and then if you use them correctly, they'll give you a better solution to a problem than just shooting it.
Hmm.
I like that idea. That's honestly pretty fun.
Especially with the idea that if you have to roll the dice to shoot the gun, then you're not
know.
guaranteed to get the end result that you want.
I like the idea that you always load it with 6 bullets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they always fire in order, but you randomize your starting point.
Oh,
Okay.
like an actual Russian roulette where you spin the barrel first, so you don't know where you start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could start with buy instead of high. That'd be an interesting mechanic. So I think that's everything we prompted last time. So everything apart from that is a completely fair game. So
Heck
what do
yeah.
we do next, Purple?
Right. So we're going to work out the sort of tagline for the game. So like who it's about, what are they doing, and where are they doing it? So
I came up with basically. I wrote today for my assignment. I wrote a story which does involve a bit of time travel, and I came up with the title "The Past is Epilogue."
Okay. That could be part of it, definitely. The past is epilogue if we want to really stick with the time travel mechanic.
Hmm.
It's
Though
very
I'm not
Memento.
exactly sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think how it would, because I really like sticking with the essentially truth bullet idea, though obviously it'd be possibly something else. I'm not sure what we'd call it necessarily. That would depend on what the bullets are.
Yeah. So my slight worry on that is that if we're doing truth bullets, then you need like airtight cases apart from certain flaws,
Yeah,
which is
I would
hard to write.
I
as a
would have
GM.
those bullets, if they're going to be words, them being things like adjectives. Like adjectives or verbs feel like good things to load into the
Ooh.
gun if it has to be words, because then you can shoot something and apply that verbal adjective to it. But I was
I'm
thinking
kind
wider.
of thinking Persona, so like where they in is it 4 where they have the guns? And
It's 3.
like,
And you
3.
can summon your
Yeah.
persona by shocking yourself, essentially,
Yeah.
thinking you're about to die.
I mean, maybe that we could definitely work with that kind of thing. If essentially you have what I would call like stock bullets, which are fairly generic things like adjectives, happy, sad, basically the responses like you see in a multi-choice game. Like you got the sarcastic response, you've got the X, Y, Z, and then possibly through some, I don't know, maybe a time travel mechanic or some investigation mechanic, you can find out specific phrases that actually help you get the best solution to your problem.
I don't really like the stock bullets idea. I think that sort of cheapens it.
That's fair. No, I can appreciate that.
Ooh,
so-
a game that I endlessly love and tend to talk about a lot, so forgive me. Hack the Planet by Grant Howitt. Has a whole thing where you, in that game, you hack things by basically pulling words at random out of this table. That's all like 90s computer jargon, and then you describe your hack using those words and get bonuses if you do. Maybe having a pool of words that's established maybe before play, like everybody submits a ton of adjectives and verbs, and you put them into a big cowboy hat for theming.
Yeah, that could actually work, because that could also help the DM theme the adventure based on, maybe they give you a prompt for like words and then they will improvise some more stuff based on what you put.
Because then that means that you can reload your gun. If you shoot all your bullets, then you get to pull new bullets out of the hat and you don't know what you're going to get.
That might be a thing. So let's see. If we're going for a tagline, so I guess what are they doing should be a thing we answer before we do how. So what are these people doing?
I've got like a weird sort of soft spot for the whole time loop thing.
Is it
where
fucking
like they're
time
trying
police?
to break out of the time loop?
Oh, that would be cool. Would a time police thing be? I like the idea of a time police thing. That sounds cool. Like a Lupin situation.
You're just incarnations of one person.
Oh,
like Looper.
Yeah, like Looper. Literally, I can imagine it being essentially the goal of the player characters is to stop contradictions in the space-time continuum, and they essentially have to fix those paradoxes. But it's still like each person is basically the same person across time, but they're going to different time periods as that person.
Ooh, okay. So is this the like comedy movie style incarnations of yourself where it's like, oh yes, there's Nathan Prime, and then there's like Pirate Nathan, and then there's like Femme Fatale Nathan, so you all get to pick a different weird parallel universe version of John, I guess, in a kind of everybody is John kind of way.
I mean, I really like that sort of thing. I did it with Eclipse Phase. So you're all forks of the same person. Because it's a transhumanist game where you can like copy your mind because it's software.
Sure.
Now here's a question based on, because you've related it to Everyone is John, which for listeners who may not know what that is, basically the concept of the game is there is one person who is John and everyone else who is parts of John, and they're telling John to do certain things based on a mission they have, and obviously a lot of chaos happens. In line with that idea, could it be that everyone is the same person, so everyone is this one like time hopper, but each one of them has a different objective?
I think that could be like hard to balance. It works in Everybody is John because Everybody is John is like explicitly a comedy game, and so like it devolving into chaos because everyone's trying to take control and do different things is kind of par for the course.
That makes sense.
So are we maybe going for something a little less slapstick? I do quite like the idea of while you're all given collectively, maybe you don't get so specific as what the future should be, but you're told that this particular time period has the problem. And by everything that you do, the epilogue that you work towards is what the future is like after all the weird stuff you've done.
I like the idea of that.
Are you being sort of led by your sort of prime version?
I mean, yeah, I think there's a degree of being able to choose Agent Prime, or if Agent Prime is undetermined, who is Agent Prime is maybe a thing that you all compete a little bit over. But
just who's in charge?
yeah, basically, and in a thing where in any kind of agent-y thing where everybody seems to be on an equal level, there's always an underlying fight for being the leader, and that's kind of true of Cowboy stuff as well, right? If everybody is a rootin', tootin', shootin' outlaw, then who is the rootinest and tootinest?
I like the idea.
Sorry, go on.
You go first.
And one thing, maybe not for this time, but if we ever come back to an idea like this, is have an imposter. I do love games where there's an imposter or someone secretly Hitler. Don't read too much into that last one. But no, I do like that. And I thought, again, it might be too complicated for this time, but the idea to be that one of us isn't John. One of us is actually not. Yeah, one of us is Jeff.
Someone's a traitor, basically.
And I think so. The GM
so good.
could private message whoever Jeff is, and just say, "Yo, you're Jeff."
It's like, you want to destroy the time stream instead of build it for the good future.
Yeah.
Yes.
That could be an interesting idea, though it might be hard to balance. But it depends what kind of game. I like the idea that came up briefly that one of the you're given a scenario. And you're not told what you're trying to make the future. You're told what the past is. So, example, on this day, in this year, in this place, John F. Kennedy is shot. Your job is to stop that. But then the outcome of the game is you do a bunch of stuff as the players, and then there's an epilogue section where time plays out, and either it gets infinitely worse, so it goes from John F. Kennedy to the Earth exploded, or it gets infinitely better, so John F. Kennedy is not shot, world hunger is solved, blah blah blah, and that's all affected by what the players do in that time period. In which case, it's very much the butterfly effect, the game.
Another option would be instead of actual separate time periods, to have separate worlds. So one idea is that if you do the same day, except every time you reset, basically something has like the sort of tag for the world has changed.
Mm-hmm. Giving the world a tag. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm wondering. So, give me an example of a scenario how that would use that.
Okay, so you've got to stop this thing happening at midnight, right?
Mm-hmm.
At midnight, the terrorists who've been sent back in time to stop release the weird virus, right? And you fail, but like at least one world, you've got to get it to work, right?
Sure.
You've got to just succeed in one world. You can just what you're doing is you're discarding that entire timeline and going, we can cut that one out later.
Mm-hmm.
Prune it out, and then you skip back a day, but it's in a different timeline. So this time the 60s never ended.
Okay, so more like Primer than Looper.
Don't know Primer.
Primer, essentially, as far as I remember, I may be hideously wrong, in which case I'm sorry, sci-fi fans, is essentially, instead of time travel being linear, so you go back and you keep going along the same time path, it's basically lateral. So each time you make a change, a new world appears, and you go along that timeline, and so essentially all the other timelines are moot or doomed.
I won't lie, it's been a while since I saw it. My ex is going more into it than me. But I used to go to the university that the secret agency headquarters, the outside was filmed at.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
But yeah, that always
sorry,
like you said, but yeah, that was always more alternate realities, and they kept going back into certain ones. So I do think you were right that it was more lateral than
linear. But yeah. I mean, the only issue I have with that, because as a fluff idea, it makes sense. Like if we're doing time travel, obviously we're not going to worry so much about, this is how time travel works. We're not going to get into that entire debate because no matter what we say, we're going to be wrong, basically. I'm just wondering how that affects it from a gameplay standpoint, because if you can essentially fail and dump a world and then create another world and try and do it there, I don't see what the point is.
Then there needs to be a penalty, which could be fairly easily to fluff. Like maybe there's a resource that we need, and dumping the world loses the resource.
Okay.
I think since one of the kind of conceits for idea generation is tags, the idea that maybe the world comes with a set of tags, and then every time you screw up, there's one less tag than before. Like the world is falling apart as we keep resetting it.
You are hard-bitten time wranglers trying to keep the the future of humanity secure.
Can I lasso the time stream?
Oh my gosh.
No. The name of the game is not Lasso the Time Stream.
That would be that's actually a cool mechanic. We'll come back to that.
Are you sure it's not Lasso the Time Stream?
So essentially, let's say
if you want to take it there, but
I want to take it there. I am taking it
let's
there.
See.
I'm giving it a table.
So I like that idea. So essentially, let's say the world starts with 5 tags, and let's say, like, maybe one of those tags is gravity. It has gravity. And say you fail, you reset, and it's randomly rolled which one disappears. And let's say gravity disappears. Now you're basically trying to solve this thing in antigrav.
Cool. So a bit like in a D&D game where your character is killed off and they manage to save the critical, but they still got something permanently done to affect their character.
Yeah, I mean,
think it not affecting your character would be better. The idea that it affects the world,
but then the world will affect your character.
Oh yeah. But I like the idea that your time wranglers, you're sort of immune to this. Or it fades from you more gradually.
Oh, I see. Okay, so like the rest of the world is suddenly anti-grav, but you guys have gravity, so you're just trying to deal with like floating assassins, and you're like, oh gosh, how is this working?
Yeah. So
I like that idea.
Like going back to the sort of Western thing, apart from the sort of 6-shooter and sort of like cowboy sort of aesthetics of it, I'm thinking like the sort of frontier lawlessness. Maybe maybe this is like the history that's sort of unraveling as people move further away from it, and you're there to like basically salvage stuff from it. But there's other people that want to salvage things for their own ends, and their ends, according to your boss, don't involve building a glorious future.
So you're like, okay, cool. There are other people out here who don't have the same noble intentions that we do. So shooting them with our time gun is A-okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm still kind of like the idea of if we're from the future, the kind of metaphysics of this world is to our whim. Considering us resetting it destroys tags of the world, it kind of feels that we should be able to affect the world as we interact. So that removes the ability to shoot to kill, because when you shoot them, they might become flying instead.
Oh yeah, it's like if you how about it's like the whole thing is we can't remove from the world directly, you can only add.
Oh, I like that idea. So essentially combining the idea we had earlier with the guns, everyone puts in a random bunch of objectives at the start of the game, and you can shoot with those objectives. It's random, kind of. Maybe there's a method by which you can make it less random.
Well, I mean, it's a thing of you can pull words and then put them into your 6-shooter. So you have a table that I guess it would be like a dry erase board in real life, right?
I really, really like the idea that at the start of each day, you choose what to load into your gun, and then you roll your starting point, and you don't get new ones until the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether it's until end of day or until you've shot all the bullets from your gun.
End of day.
Okay.
I think the only thing I changed about that is starting point, because it's not. If we're going with the adjective idea, they're not necessarily going to be in order. There is no like logical order.
Well, there is a logical order because you're doing the same day again, so you know what order you'll need them in.
Oh, but then if it's random, it doesn't matter what order it's in because you can always bugger up. Like it's not there isn't an investigation thing where it's like this is the order they must be in. There is always a random chance that no matter what you do, you'll fail, and that doesn't seem fair.
I mean, it doesn't mean you fail. It just means you have to be more resourceful with what you've got.
Yeah, but then at that point you might as well roll randomly rather than having a logical order.
I don't know. I think that there's still some benefit to it, but I think you've got a point that it's possibly more of a fringe benefit. It might not actually add as much as the complexity warrants.
Yeah, I think let's see what happens when we go deeper into that. But I like the idea of, okay, so essentially what we've gotten so far is you are time police, essentially, with, I guess, Western...
Time wranglers.
Time wranglers. You got
it's very important they wrangle.
You're like metaphorically Western, so like 10-gallon hats and all that jazz, but not necessarily Western. And you are given a situation where it's like this bad thing will happen. You need to go back and fix it or salvage something or whatever.
I mean, so what's happened is that the time rustlers have like set up like a weird paradox, and you've got to prevent it from coming to pass.
Okay, so yeah, there's some issue you need to solve, and you go there, and the world has a certain number of tags, maybe like 5, so essentially 5 lives. And then if you fail, you can choose to reset the world, but when you do so, it randomly loses one of those tags, which will most likely make your task more difficult.
But you do get to carry over like any words that you've mined out of the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can like discover words?
You can basically spend some time to extract words. Like there's a process. I don't know what it is yet, but there's a process by which you can get yourself specialist ammo for the next run.
I like that idea. So is my question at this point is, because obviously you're going to different worlds, different timelines, I guess. is it like Groundhog Day? Does the same set of actions always happen in each world, just maybe with some variations based on what tag disappeared?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, it's supposed to be the same thing, but
Yeah.
because like you're in this sort of area of fragmenting time that's been trying, like that's whatever the rustlers are trying to steal away from the main timeline. It's not stable.
Okay.
So this might try like drift a little bit into what the GM might do to kind of make these worlds work. It seems that, and this is two separate ideas, so give me a second. That you as the GM write down X number of things that happen that day, maybe like 5 things.
Yeah.
And so that stays consistent, that those 5 things always happen regardless of what you do and regardless of what happens to the world. Regardless of what happens to the world, I guess. What you do can change that, obviously.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is the if we're kind of messing around with time and being able to reset, the idea of setting in new save state points, I think, is a fun idea. So say, just to kind of give this game some structure of how long it runs, especially since we have to run it later, it takes place over the course of, say, 3 days, arbitrarily. Yeah. And at the end of day 1, you've blown up the bank and you've set the orphanage on fire. And then you all decide between you whether you want to do that day over again and lose apart the consistency of the world, or be like, no, we'll save state that, and that's all locked in, that's all happened, and then it's day 2, and you kind of have to now move on with the chaos that you've set going on before.
I like the idea that obviously we don't tend to build absolutely complete games in the sense of like including all optional rules. But I like the idea that you could have an idea for like a one-shot game, which would be, less save states. Or you could have essentially a longer-term game, which would have more save states. Because it helps if you're going to play a longer version of this game, which we're not going to most likely, to have those save states. Otherwise, you're back at square one. But for like a one-shot like we'd be doing, we'd need less or none.
I'm also thinking it could be worth taking 2 tags out and putting 1 in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the world gets more and more bizarre and surreal the more
it just gets different every time. Different and worse. Okay.
And not necessarily in sensible ways. Like the idea that like it's day 1, it's a normal sort of American Midwest town. And by about day 3, it's gone quite Night Vale.
It's now underwater.
It's been underwater forever. And like the mayor has 6 legs.
Great granddaughter is pretty fine.
I also like the idea that this is more just a thing I find funny, is that if you lose, like obviously you lose, the world blows up, blah blah blah, like everything failed. But if you win, like the world is just forever changed in that one way, but the thing you stopped, if you actually did stop, everything else went weird, and you it doesn't go back to normal. It's just that one thing that happened. Like the one thing we got paid for is done. Let's go, and everything else just get eaten by like giant centipedes or something. You're just like, yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're canon now, right?
Yeah, you've save stated, you've locked in the timeline, so like
I like that. Okay, so I think with all of that, we actually do have enough to make a tagline.
Sure. Before we finish, though, since our first game is the game where we can afford to make a few mistakes and maybe have a bit of fat to cut off, I would like to make a pitch for Jeff.
To one of these cowboy time cops.
Yeah. I feel that we should Jeff it, and the reason, like I said, is because the first game is the whole. In my view, I could be wrong, but the way I see it, the whole point of the first game is that maybe we include a few too many elements. Maybe something doesn't quite work.
No, I feel you.
I think it's easier to have it in the first game and have it not work than not have it in the first game and then find it harder to justify in the second.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. So like the Jeff idea.
Chris's numerical stats thing has largely gone missing.
That happens. He also isn't here, so.
I mean, it depends what you consider a stat being kind of like, the determining of the number of tags. That's a fixed number.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to talk about which might relate to stats, especially something like health, would be how is failure quantified. So
I
you know
think
what
it's
counts as a
opportunity
fail.
cost. Like honestly, like opportunity cost is where I think that a lot of this is going to come out.
I think there could be
you've used a bullet,
yeah,
or you don't get, or like if you fail your sneaking into the restaurant, so you can apply the aspect of crab, knowing that the person that's supposed to die is allergic to crab, right?
okay.
So you shoot the chicken with the aspect of crab to give the guy an allergic reaction, in order so that he can't mess up the timeline later. If you fail your sneaking roll, you don't get to shoot the thing with the crab.
So one of the issues I have with that idea is the same issue I have with trade. What's the thing where a DM like forces on railroading? That's it. Cut out the rest of that.
Nope.
Darn it. It's the same problem I have with railroading, in the sense there is one solution to the problem, which should not be the case in an RPG.
No,
so
that's one solution, right?
I think
that's not the only way to do it.
Yeah, so I think I think it would be good if there are multiple circumstances of which a reset is done. So
but if
one of them is
miss that chance, you've just got that crab bullet loaded, and remember you've got to use it before you.
Oh yeah, but just to finish my statement, like one of them is opportunity cost. So there will be certain situations where something has to happen in whatever way, and you have not done that thing. Okay, reset. Like that's the thing you just have to do. Another one could be someone dies, reset. So maybe if one of the time hunters or enough of the time hunters die, they can choose to reset as a group decision. So everyone comes back to life. But if you save state, something like you lose a party member could be a thing. I'm not sure. We can talk about this later, but I like the Jeff idea. I like the fact there might be a traitor.
Okay, so we've got basically you're like a posse of time wranglers trying to stop time rustlers, right?
Yep.
And how are we going to describe on the wild frontiers of time?
Yeah,
that sounds great. That'd be a great title. The Wild Frontiers of Time.
Frontiers of Time is actually pretty good.
Frontiers of Time. Yeah.
I also like the idea of butterfly rustlers, but that's just me.
Haha. Yeah.
The butterfly wranglers.
Yeah, or just butterfly.
No, butterfly wranglers, because I love that mental image.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Frontiers of Time actually sounds pretty cool.
Yes. So on the frontiers of time, I think is the on the frontiers of history, possibly.
I like Frontiers of Time.
Yeah.
That's more general than history.
It does sound very grand. Right. So
okay. So
we got. How do we exactly we're going to describe the people, and how exactly are we going to describe like what they are actually doing?
Okay, so
for the pitch.
The people time wranglers seems to be the phrase we've hitched on,
but we've used the word time at the end.
I mean,
that's not necessarily
dimension wranglers or something, just to kind of keep some space-time stuff in there. But using that general sphere of pulp sci-fi terminology.
What about paradox wranglers?
Ooh,
I like that.
And that's true as well, because that's exactly what they're doing.
So paradox wranglers on the frontiers of time, doing what?
I don't know. You're trying to thwart the time, time rustlers. Do we ever want to give like a face to the time rustlers?
I like the idea they're kind of a faceless entity.
Yeah. They're just kind of like Team Rocket. Like, who knows what they do?
Oh, they've only got one face. They've only got one face. It's your face.
Or they're just like fairly faceless. Like maybe there's one or two named ones. I don't know. But I like the idea they're just a faceless organization, which is the opposite of the paradox wranglers.
Yeah, because you have to be characterful, because that's what lets you punch through the time gates and stuff.
Also because PCs, but the idea that they're basically NPCs.
You have to be like the PC amount of weird in
Oh,
order to actually exist out in the frontiers of time.
application for Paradox Wrangler. You must be a player character.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay. So Paradox Wranglers on the frontiers of time. I don't know. Thwarting.
Break reality to save the day, essentially, is what we're doing.
I like that. Yeah, on the frontiers of time, breaking reality to save the day. That
Nice.
sounds good.
That feels very like Saturday morning cartoon, and I'm super into it.
How about break reality to save reality?
Yep.
Okay, break reality to save reality. Yeah, that. Does everyone agree with that?
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm alright with that.
Awesome. Okay, so we have our tagline and title. I like the idea of. I personally like the title as being Frontiers of Time.
Yeah, that's what I thought I assumed we were going with.
Because that can work in both a tagline and a title.
Fair. Just so you know, when I've been typing it out, I'll put break-in with an N and an apostrophe.
Yeah.
Because obviously we've got some of the Old West stuff. All right.
Breaking reality to save reality.
So we've got that sort of stuff.
That was bad.
Yes, I am aware that was bad. I am not going to be doing a cowboy voice.
Good.
Oh, go on. It was bad, but I kind of dug it.
No.
Don't encourage me.
Please don't. All right. So I guess we've got those. What are we going to do next, Purple?
We are going to have a short break, and then we will be back to dig into how to create a Paradox Wrangler, exactly how we're going to break reality and save reality, and what happens when you accidentally shoot the dustbin with the essence of crab.
Suspense.
See you after the break.
See you guys later.
Bye.